Watch this.
It's as dependable as dropping a potato on New Year's Eve. A time to ring in a new legislative session. But 2026 could come up a bit shorter than usual, thanks to a campaign season and the state coming up short on cash. When you grab popcorn at the movies, there's a pretty good chance those kernels came from Idaho. We're going to show you how a Caldwell company has shaped the snack world for more than a century. Idaho is filled with open spaces. However, only a small part falls into the state's possession. We'll explain how Idaho takes advantage of endowment land. It is only the end of September, but it's never too soon to start thinking about the beginning of next year and the 2026 legislative session. Many lawmakers are doing just that, with legislative leaders getting together to set their schedule and what they might want to talk about when next session comes along and when it comes to the budget, since that is all they are constitutionally obligated to do. However, shortfalls in the latter could lead to a shortening of the former, since it's no secret Idaho is running short on projected revenues. And it could get worse should Idaho decide to play along with President Trump's income tax plan. How much worse? Here's Joe Paris.
The date is set for lawmakers to return to the State House for official business.
The legislature will convene on the 12th of January at noon. We will then hear the governor's State of the State address at 1 o'clock.
Top legislative leaders met in Boise, and they already have a hopeful 2026 departure date down.
March the 27th is our target for sine die.
That would go down as the shortest session in a decade, and lawmakers have seen traditionally longer sessions over the last 5 years, including the technicality of staying in session for almost the entire year in 2021. But why do leaders think this session could run short?
If you look at the target date for the sine die, it's the 27th. Generally, we have years like this where the budgets are tight. We're able to get things done faster because we don't fight amongst ourselves as much. There's nothing to fight over. So hopefully we can move that date up. This is an election year, and I assume that everybody around this table is going to be a target of somebody or somebody at something.
House Speaker Mike Moyle set the stage for what could be a limited legislative year.
This is going to be an interesting year because we're going to be in a year where we're going to be reducing budgets, and we're probably going to be reducing taxes too because of some of the federal implications with the big, beautiful bill.
Lawmakers will need to vote on conforming with tax policy changes outlined in the One Big Beautiful Bill. That includes no taxes on tips, no taxes on car loan interest, and no tax on overtime premium pay. All factors that would technically lessen revenue to the state of Idaho. The Nonpartisan Tax Foundation calculates a $167.4 million impact, but Idaho calculations could put that number even higher.
The initial cost estimates that I've seen, I think the Tax Foundation is reported at a $167 million impact. The Tax Commission, their initial numbers are higher than that, about $180 million. It's going to depend on a number of factors of what the legislature decides to do.
Idaho is navigating new projections on state revenue that are coming up short. Idaho's projected ending balance has been revised from $439.8 million back in April to $21.8 million in the current September projection, a drop of $418 million. Those numbers do not include the revenue impacts of the One Big Beautiful Bill. Republican leaders on the Budget Committee are addressing the current situation.
2 months does not a year make, particularly the 2 little months that we've had compared to those big months that are coming December, April, and June. So I'm still not crying wolf yet, hopefully that everything's going to be terrible. I'm waiting to see how all of that develops.
There are certainly metrics in business and economies that show growth for Idaho, but they are growing slower than first projected. It creates a complex question for lawmakers. Will they conform with all pieces of the BBB tax policy?
We are about to take on the One Big Beautiful Bill, which is going to be a conformity question. And to the JFAC chair's point, two months don't make a year. So what I see is one of the most prosperous times in Idaho history. I'm always puzzled by anything said otherwise.
Lawmakers were briefed on the latest budget and revenue position, ending with about $22 million on the bottom line, in the black. But certainly less than the April number of nearly $440 million. And again, this comes after Governor Little ordered 3% budget cuts.
At this stage in the game, I'm not ready to declare that there are stormy seas on the horizon, but the waters are a little bit choppy.
We've got to be prudent. We've been very aggressive in tax cuts, and I'm proud of that. That's what I think what I'm here to do, as long as we're balancing these books and we're providing the essential services that government's meant to provide.
All right, so let's talk conformity to the Federal Internal Revenue Code. We'll call it the IRC. So the state of Idaho, the lawmakers, they have the idea, and they have this every year, by the way, that they can go ahead and conform to the entire code, and then any federal changes they would adopt and they would go retroactively. But Brian, it's not an automatic thing that the state of Idaho will always conform with all pieces of the IRC. For example, in 2017, Idaho passed 2 different laws to conform to parts of the Internal Revenue Code. I know there will be immense political pressure on lawmakers to do this. It'll be a big question, though, of will this get a lot of attention during the session? Will this be something that gets just stamped right away?
And possibly, and I can't wait for somebody to say it's only 3% of our entire state budget of 5.6 billion, I think is what the state set aside. So 180 million of that is not a large number, but it's a large number. And it's interesting to hear Senator Anthony talk about essential. Remember that debate we had a few years ago about what is essential and what is not essential when it comes to what the government can do and provide?
I remember the answer being, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
As a reminder, though, the state of Idaho, in terms of rainy day funds and dedicated funds, there are a lot of millions and millions of dollars just in case. Just want to put that in there, too.
Thanks, Joe. Well, it doesn't look like much if you're just driving around, say, Canyon County, and you see rows and rows of plants and dried that were usually brown this time of year, because that's what happens, right? You might say, who would even want to look at that? That doesn't look appetizing at all. But the thing is, those fields are some of the most valuable crops in Idaho, not because of what they are today, obviously, but of what they could become tomorrow. They're seeds from Canyon County. They end up on farms all over the world, turning into like sweet corn that you grow, the onions that you dice up, the popcorn you might even crunch on in a movie theater. Hunter Funk explains why the Treasure Valley celebrates the small stuff, as you say.
Yeah, the small stuff.
Yeah.
It's the seeds. The Treasure Valley is just one of 5 major seed production regions in the world. Canyon County produces 65% of the world's sweet corn seed. It also ranks first in the United States for onion seed production. And of course, as we mentioned, if you've ever snacked on popcorn at the movie theater, get this, there's about a 50% chance those kernels came from Idaho. In all, the seed industry contributes nearly $1.5 billion annually to the state's economy, with Canyon County alone producing 50 species and hundreds of varieties of seeds that are shipped to nearly 120 countries. For more than a century, one family-owned company has helped make the Treasure Valley a world leader in sweet corn seed.
Seed crops are high risk, they're also high value. They are some, if not the most highest paying per acre in the Treasure Valley. We do a lot of research, making sure that our seeds are not only healthy, but they are adaptable to every type of environment where they're sold.
High risk, but also requires fewer acres, which can actually help young farmers get their start into farming. These seed growers also benefit from something most farmers don't: stability.
We don't go through big up and down cycles like commodities do. Not that we're special, we're very fortunate. Take the big recession that happened. Our business went up. The Depression, our business went up. During world wars that we've had and other various wars, our production went up because people still need to eat and we need to feed them. So really, we do not have the spikes of other industries.
While there are positives, it's not always just good news. There is a major challenge looming over the seed industry, and we're going to dig into that tonight at 6, Brian.
Oh, yeah, looking forward to it. The phrase going to seed isn't always a bad thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a good thing, right? It's helping our economy.
All right. Thanks, Hunter. We'll see you at 6. The land across Idaho isn't just easy on the eyes. It's also pleasing to the state's pocketbook. A look at how Idaho's public lands pump millions into the state budget, all while staying in public hands. You know what else is open to the public? That would be our phone number. Let us know what you think about the 208-321-5614. As always, include your name and the hashtag the 208. Clean, concise, and clever, well, that is your best chance to see yours possibly shared at the end of the show. Two-thirds of Idaho's acreage is owned by the federal government. That's about 34.5 million acres being managed by either the Bureau of Land Management or the U.S. Forest Service. That's the fourth most of any state in the country. We learned that yesterday when we broke down what makes up public land across the West. So continuing our look today into the battleground of Idaho's public lands, we are turning our focus on the land owned by the state. When Idaho did join the Union back in 1890, the federal government gave the state more than 3.5 million acres. Well, these days that number has decreased to about 2.5 million acres, or about 5% of the state. Endowment land, it's called. And Joe Paris explains what that means, why it's crucial to Idaho for both recreation and revenue.
The state of Idaho has a unique arrangement, almost a checkerboard of different agencies that have ownership and management of different swaths. But how does state land play into all of this? State land like I'm on right now, outside the Boise foothills.
There has been this lack of understanding for years, really since statehood, right? These lands that were granted to the state of Idaho were granted by the federal government starting right around the Civil War.
Dustin Miller is director of the Idaho Department of Lands. He talks lands for a living.
We received a total of 3.6 million acres for the sole purpose of funding the various institutions needed to begin providing services for a new state.
The endowment land, as it's called, still helps to power those services till this day.
The public education system, the state penitentiary system, the state hospital system. And so the focus there was for the states to utilize those endowment lands to produce revenue and manage those natural resources in a way to produce revenue and maximize revenue for the endowment beneficiaries. And 85% of the acres we manage belong to Idaho's public schools.
Particular parcels belong to specific endowments. This interactive map helps to show how it all fits together. The Land Board, made up of Idaho's top officials, provides directions to the Department of Lands in their management of approximately 2.5 million acres of that state trust land. But how does the Idaho Land Board generate money from it? Well, in the beginning, it was selling land as an easy solution.
Land began being sold by the Land Board shortly after statehood and really slowed at about World War II, following World War II. About 1 million acres, 1.1 million acres were divested of, and a lot of those were more of the cropland areas, better fertile farm ground. Those were sold into private ownership, and we retained most of the timberland acres.
Leaders knew that selling all the land would not help future generations, so they got to work on the land, and it continues as we speak.
Sell timber on those lands. On about 1 million acres of what we have right now is timberlands, and that produces about 90% of the revenue for the endowment beneficiaries. We also lease lands for livestock grazing, for communication sites, commercial leasing, mineral leasing, recreational leasing, and other types of leases to produce that revenue. And so they are working lands. They belong to the endowment beneficiaries, but they do not belong to the general public.
But that doesn't mean the general public doesn't get to use them for hikes, bikes, delights.
Managing these lands to produce income, that's paramount. That's the endowment mission. But we're also keeping these lands open for public recreation. But we need to continue to get our message out to inform the public on what the true nature of these lands really is. And they're set aside for a purpose to produce that revenue for the endowments.
Like the trees on the landscape, the land board wants to see that money made grow.
That money is sent over to the Endowment Fund Investment Board that manages a $3.5 billion permanent fund for the endowment. So the land and the financial instruments work together to produce those distributions for our endowment beneficiaries.
Not every piece of land that Idaho owns is endowment land. The state has certainly acquired land beyond the initial gift from the government. Idaho Parks and Recreation maintains great places to visit, hike, and camp, and the state still looks to purchase for several purposes.
And in the last 5 years, I think we've acquired more than 50,000 acres of additional timberlands that we've purchased from private timber landowners. And so we are growing the state assets, the state land assets slowly, but we do have a land bank that allows us to use those funds to purchase lands that make sense for us to manage and make sense for us to acquire.
Idaho does sell land in very specific cases, but knows that they can usually maximize endowment land with continued operations that have led to sizable payouts.
Last year, the distribution based off of, again, our work on the land and the work done by the Endowment Fund Investment Board was about $100 million that was doled out to the beneficiaries.
So it can be a complicated conversation for sure, but if you realize you're on state endowment land, the next time you're out and about, you can tell the people you're with it's parcels with a purpose.
Okay, so state land is that public land, but of course with specific interests that optimize endowment land to benefit what it benefits. Idaho's public land, state and federal, they do generate a lot of conversation, especially of late when there was talk of selling it off. Well, a growing debate is who should control those lands. Some Idahoans wonder, could the state do a better job than the federal government? And what would that mean for public access? We're going to talk about that tomorrow here on the 208.
Well, after last night's storms that brought in that record rain to Boise, we kept the unsettled weather trend going today. We had a pocket of heavier rain across the Treasure Valley earlier. Things are quieting down now, but across the Magic Valley out up into the Central Mountains, we're still seeing some rain, storms, and even in the very high elevations, some light snow looks like it is coming down. It's been a cool send-off to September as well. We've been into the 70s this afternoon across the Treasure Valley, but that storm-cooled air has dropped us now into the mid to upper 60s. We're in the mid 60s in Twin Falls at the moment and just 50s up in the mountains. And as we talk about what's coming our way for the rest of the evening, we will keep the umbrella handy. It'll be needed along with the hooded jacket. We'll have those splash and dash showers likely across the Boise area until about 10 o'clock. Mostly cloudy skies linger overnight. I think tomorrow we will see drier conditions overall, but you can see from now through Friday, we keep those rain and storm chances going in the Treasure Valley. Higher chances in the Magic Valley, especially Thursday, and the higher you go in elevation, the more likely it is you'll encounter those showers and storms just continuing to pop up. So just kind of damp and cool over the next several days. Fog is potential, or there's a potential for fog in the mornings as well, especially with light winds tomorrow. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds overhead. Couple showers could come in. We'll only hit 70 in Boise tomorrow. Temperatures will continue to cool over the next several days. So sweater weather coming in for the open to October. Can you believe October tomorrow? 55 in the morning in Boise, upper 40s out in Ontario early on. We'll wake up to 50 across the Magic Valley and 30s for most of our mountain locations. And again, highs tomorrow on the cooler side will rise into those low 70s for much of the Treasure Valley, right at 70 for Twin Falls and Jerome, and generally 50s and 60s across the higher elevations with a little bit of sunshine here and there. But I do anticipate clouds to win out, especially across the higher elevations. We'll rinse and repeat for Thursday. Highs hold steady at 70 for the Boise area with that slight chance of a shower. Higher rain chances as you head east of the Treasure Valley on Thursday. Bear that in mind. On Friday, we keep those rain chances in play as finally the core of the system that's been driving this unsettled weather will make its way through. As it leaves on Saturday, that will bring in some breezy winds and cooler temperatures, but we will start drying out for the first weekend of the new month. Sunshine returns, but be ready for some cold mornings, highs into the 60s, I should say. Morning lows in just the 40s in Boise for the next several days.
Well, with all that rain we've seen today and heading our way, you might be surprised to hear wildfires are still a concern across southern Idaho. And just in time for its 50th anniversary, Caldwell's Airport is about to get a glow up and an expansion. Here's Richard Rodriguez with the 411.
The Lake Creek fire is still burning in Blaine County, and road closures are still in effect. Lake Creek Road, Eagle Creek Road, and North Fork Ski Loop Road are all closed to the public. Only official government officers who are on duty for the fire suppression efforts are allowed in the area. The Forest Service says the closure is to ensure public safety. So far, the fire has burned about 300 acres. Pre-evacuation ready status remains in place for the area. The Forest Service says the rock fire is now fully contained thanks to some help from the overnight rain. About 1/4 of an inch of rain fell in the area where the rock fire is burning near Tamarack Resort. Fire managers say they are confident the fire no longer possesses the threat of crossing any control lines. To clarify, the agency says the fire has not fully stopped burning and people may still see more smoke throughout the fall. The fire closure area is still in effect, but the Forest Service says plans are in place to lift that soon. The Caldwell Airport is preparing for major growth, with a strategic plan outlining millions of dollars of improvements, including a new control tower, expanding the runway and attracting more businesses. Both the control tower and runway expansion would be almost entirely funded by the federal government, but the strategic plan asks the city to consider allocating about $3 million over several years to extend utilities like sewer and water to the north side of the property to appeal to developers. If you're in town when the Broncos head to Notre Dame this weekend, we are teaming up with Boise State Athletics to host a free watch party. It will be at Albertson Stadium this Saturday. Gates open at 12:30. Kickoff is at 1:30. If you can't make it, you can also watch the game right here on KTVB. Again, that game's kickoff is at 1:30 on Saturday. That's the 411. I'm Richard Rodriguez.
Meridian does not buy the budget shortfall that is proposed here in the state of Idaho, saying, come on, Joe and Brian, with all the new people who've moved into our state, how can Idaho's budget come up short unless our legislature is spending more than the projected income? Our fiscal year begins on July 1st. When they went through the session, they thought they were going to get X number of dollars. They didn't. That $450 million in tax breaks that they passed last session may end up coming back to bite them. We'll see, though. We'll see tomorrow.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.